Hey, it's Zoe from Crisis Support Services. Our education program called Teens for Life has created this video to learn a little bit about suicide and how to help. First, here's a little information about our agency. We are a nonprofit and we're super well known for providing Alameda County's crisis hotline. But we also have some fantastic counseling and, of course, education services as well. For 65 years now, we've been able to support our community with the help of some truly dedicated volunteers and staff. Before we begin, it's important to note that this presentation might include topics that are challenging or sometimes triggering. I recommend that you watch this video wherever or whenever it feels safe to do so. If you do find yourself in need of immediate emotional support, please pause this video and call one of the two numbers I've provided on the screen. If you're in a medical or physical safety emergency, call 911. This presentation is intended for ages 10 to 21. In this presentation, we will first answer the question of why we should talk about suicide. Then we'll look at some of the warning signs for suicide. Afterwards, we'll cover some key points for how to help a friend. Finally, we'll provide you with some helpful resources. So why is it important to talk about suicide? Well, one reason is that suicide can be preventable, which means that there's help available for someone who's dealing with these challenging or painful feelings. Also, suicide isn't always commonly talked about. So by just being open to talking about it, we can really help to decrease the judgment that sometimes surrounds the topic. Talking about it can also increase our own understandings about suicide, and that often helps people feel a lot more comfortable with the subject, especially when it comes to supporting a friend or a loved one that might be having thoughts of ending their life. There are sometimes challenges when talking about suicide. Sometimes these feelings of discomfort might make it hard for someone to talk about what they're going through, or that discomfort might keep a friend from checking in on someone that they are concerned about. But by naming and acknowledging what exactly feels challenging about it, we can feel more comfortable and confident moving forward with the conversation. So let's explore some of these together. You can pause the video here if you'd like to take a closer look. First of all, when we talk about suicide, we're also having a conversation about death. And that can sometimes feel really scary and overwhelming. Also, sometimes friends might not know what words are right to use, or they might be fearful that by talking about suicide, they'll somehow make things worse, or maybe even plant the idea of suicide in someone's mind. Teens also sometimes find it challenging to talk about because they're afraid that they'll be judged for the thoughts of suicide that they're having, or they might feel like nobody's going to take them seriously. Another common challenge for teens might be that they don't know what the warning signs might look like in a friend. So let's talk about what those warning signs are in our next slide. For suicide warning signs, the first 3 bullet points that you see on this slide are some of the most common high-risk warning signs to look out for. They often mean that somebody is at an increased risk. It's important to notice if a friend is talking about or threatening to end their lives, even if you're not sure if they're making a joke or not. Also, if a friend has a plan for how they'll end their lives, or if they're looking for the things that they'd use to kill themselves, we need to take that really seriously too. A friend might also seem preoccupied, with death or dying in general. You might notice that they're posting things on social media about death or frequently bringing up these topics. In the table below, you'll see some other potential warning signs for suicide. Even though these don't always mean that someone is at an increased risk, it's still important to pay attention to when a friend is acting differently. You can pause the video here if you'd like to take a closer look. Let's look at some real-life examples of what those warning signs might look like in real life. In the left column, you'll see some examples of things that you might hear a friend say. It's really important to pay attention to the way that your friend talks about themselves. You might hear them say things that are really direct, like, "I'm going to kill myself," or "I can't stop thinking about suicide." But you might also hear things that are less direct, like, "I wish I could just disappear," or "I can't take this anymore," or "What's the point in trying?" In the right column, we have some examples of changes that you might see in a friend. You might notice that a friend is posting goodbye on social media, or that they're giving away possessions that mean a lot to them. They're spending more time alone than usual, not responding to calls or texts. Maybe they're refusing to hang out with their usual group of friends. You might also see that your friend has increased drinking or drug use, or that they're experiencing really drastic mood shifts. For example, one minute they might seem okay, and the next they might snap at you out of nowhere, or they might snap in response to you asking them if they're okay. You can pause the video here to take a closer look at what these warning signs might look or sound like. Key ideas to help a friend. The very first step to being helpful is by starting a conversation. A great way to do that is by being really direct and honest with your friend. That way, they can tell that you're taking the conversation really seriously. You can say something like, "Hey, you seem really sad lately. Did you want to talk?" Or, "I know how tough stuff has been lately. I want to ask, have you been having thoughts of suicide?" However you choose to start the conversation, do it in a way that feels real and authentic to you. By asking directly about suicide, you'll be showing your friend that it's okay for them to open up to you. Often, one of the most helpful things that we can do for a friend is to give them the space to talk about what they're feeling. And while listening, remember to do so without judgment. Be patient with your friend, because this may be hard for them to talk about. Sometimes we might feel like we have to handle our friends' thoughts of suicide all on our own, but that is not the best way to support someone who's going through something so difficult. Instead, we should tell an adult in our life that we trust. This could be somebody like a parent, a counselor, a coach, or a spiritual figure in your life. The most important thing is that it's someone who you really trust. You can also ask your friend who they'd feel comfortable speaking to and talk to that adult together. Remember, adults don't handle this stuff on their own, and so neither should you. In fact, the best care and recovery happens when more than one person is caring for and supporting an individual. Also, sometimes, but not all the time, a friend might ask us to keep their thoughts of suicide a secret. And that might make people feel hesitant to tell a trusted adult. Our last key point for how to help a friend is the saying, preserve life over friendship. This means that it's better to have a friend who's mad at you for telling a secret than to have a friend who isn't around anymore. Here's some basic information about our crisis line and text line. If you'd like to learn more about these services, there are dedicated videos to each on our YouTube channel. Our counselors specialize in suicide prevention, so these numbers are a great resource to have in order to help a friend. Someone might also want to reach out to talk about what it feels like to have a friend who's thinking about suicide. We're here to support you no matter what. So if you're in Alameda County, you can call 1-800-309-2131 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Teens in Alameda County can also text the word SAFE to the number 20121 to text with a counselor between the hours of 4 and 11 p.m. Now, if you don't live in Alameda County, you can call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-8255. These are free services, and your information remains private and confidential unless someone's life or safety is in danger. Now for some closing thoughts. We want you to remember that suicide can be preventable. Recovery happens every day, and help is available for people who are having thoughts of suicide. By being open to learning and talking about suicide, we can reduce the stigma and help people feel more comfortable reaching out for support. You really do have the power to help a friend. Oftentimes, teens are the first people to notice warning signs and check in on their friends. Telling an adult who you trust, whether it's someone in your life or one of our crisis counselors, is a big part in getting help for a friend. Finally, remember, you don't have to handle this all on your own. You are not alone. Once again, here are the helpful numbers we mentioned. Thanks for staying tuned till the end of the video. Check out the comments for a link to our Teens for Life resource card. Follow us on social media and check out our other education videos on our YouTube channel. Bye for now.